The alarm came at the worst possible time. Admiral Vethari was in the middle of her morning meal when the lights in her quarters turned red. She pushed away her food and walked quickly to the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Vigilance. "Report," she said as she stepped through the doors. Her sensor officer, a young male from the Kethri species with blue scales covering his face, turned to look at her. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly. This was a sign of confusion among his people. "Admiral, we have detected an unknown vessel. It came out of uncharted space approximately 20 minutes ago." Vethari moved to stand beside him and looked at the main screen. The ship appeared as a small dot against the blackness of space. The computer was trying to identify it, but the words "unknown classification" kept flashing. "Size?" she asked. "Approximately 1 kilometer in length, Admiral. Small by our standards." Vethari relaxed slightly. The Galactic Concord had maintained peace among 12 spacefaring civilizations for 3,000 years. In that time, they had encountered many strange things. A single small ship was not cause for panic. "Perhaps a lost freighter," she said, "or first contact with a minor species. Have you tried to communicate with them?" "Yes, Admiral. We have sent greetings in all known languages. We have also sent mathematical sequences and universal peace signals. There has been no response." This was unusual, but not alarming. Some species were simply slow to respond. Others had communication systems that were not compatible with conquered technology. Vethari had dealt with such situations before. "Send a diplomatic envoy," she ordered. "Include a patrol squadron for protection. Standard first contact protocols." The orders were carried out within the hour. 3 diplomatic vessels, escorted by 12 patrol ships, made their way toward the unknown craft. Vethari watched their progress on the main screen. The unknown ship did not move. It simply hung there in the darkness of space, waiting. Commander Jethan led the diplomatic team. He was an experienced officer who had participated in 7 first-contact situations during his career. As his ship approached the unknown vessel, he studied it carefully through his viewing screen. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen. It had no visible windows, no obvious weapon ports, no engine exhausts that he could identify. The hull was a deep black color that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. "Scan the vessel," he ordered his crew. "Trying, Commander, but something is wrong. Our scanning beams are not returning properly. The ship appears to be absorbing them." Jethan felt a small knot of worry form in his stomach. In his many years of service, he had never encountered a hull material that could absorb scanning beams. Such technology was theoretical at best. "Continue trying," he said, "and keep sending greeting messages." For the next 30 minutes, the diplomatic team attempted to make contact. They used every method available to them. Light signals, radio waves, quantum pulses. Nothing worked. The unknown ship remained silent. Then, without warning, the vessel began to move. "It is heading deeper into conquered space," the sensor officer reported. "Speed is increasing. It will pass us in approximately 3 minutes." Jethan made a quick decision. "Move to intercept. Position our ships in its path. Perhaps they will stop and communicate if we show we wish to speak with them." The patrol squadron spread out in a wide formation. They were not trying to threaten the unknown ship. They simply wanted to encourage it to stop and talk. The unknown ship did not stop. It continued forward as if the conquered vessels were not there. Jethan watched it approach on his screen. Up close, the ship was even more unsettling. Its hull seemed to shift and move slightly, like the skin of a living creature. "This is Commander Jethan of the Galactic Concord," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Please stop and identify yourself. We wish only to communicate peacefully." For a moment, nothing happened. The unknown ship continued its silent approach. Then it responded. Jethan never saw what hit his ship. One moment he was standing on his bridge. The next moment, his vessel was filled with blinding light and terrible heat. He had just enough time to realize that he was dying before everything went dark. The patrol squadron lasted only seconds longer. Weapons that no one in the galaxy had ever seen tore through shields that were supposed to be unbreakable. Ships that had been built to withstand terrible punishment were destroyed as easily as paper burning in a fire. Admiral Vethari watched in horror as the lights representing her ships disappeared from her screen one by one. The entire engagement lasted less than 30 seconds. "By the ancient stars," she whispered, "what have we encountered?" The unknown ship did not slow down after destroying the patrol squadron. It continued deeper into conquered space as if nothing had happened, as if the deaths of hundreds of crew members meant nothing at all. Vethari's hands were shaking as she reached for the communication controls. She had to warn the conquered. She had to tell them what was coming. In 3,000 years of peace, the 12 species had forgotten what true danger looked like. Now they were about to remember. "This is Admiral Vethari to Conquered High Command," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "We have a situation. An unknown vessel has entered our space and destroyed a patrol squadron without provocation. The technology used is beyond anything in our records. I am requesting immediate reinforcement. All available fleets should be placed on high alert." She paused and looked at the screen. The unknown ship was now just a small dot again, moving away from her position, moving toward the heart of conquered civilization. "I do not know what this vessel is or where it comes from," Vethari continued. "But I know one thing with certainty. It is not here in peace. Whatever its purpose, it is willing to kill to achieve it. We must be ready." She ended the transmission and sat down heavily in her command chair. Around her, her crew worked frantically, preparing the ship for possible combat. But Vethari knew that preparation might not be enough. She had seen how quickly those patrol ships had died. She had seen how easily their shields had failed. Whatever this unknown vessel was, it possessed power that the conquered could not match. The question was simple: what did it want? And could anything in the galaxy stop it from getting it? The answer would come soon enough, and it would change everything the conquered believed about their place in the universe. Fleet Commander Torani stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched his armada take position. 400 warships from 6 different species spread across space in a perfect defensive formation. It was the largest military force assembled in over 200 years. Toranis was proud of what he saw. He was a decorated veteran who had fought in the border conflicts. He had faced pirates, rogue nations, and extinction-level threats. He had always won, and he would win again today. The unknown vessel was approaching. It had already destroyed 2 more patrol groups since the first encounter, 47 ships gone, thousands of crew members dead. The conquered was frightened, but Toranis was not. One ship, he thought. No matter how advanced, it is still just one ship. It cannot stand against the combined might of the conquered. "Status report," he ordered. His tactical officer, a female of the Vreth species with gray skin and large dark eyes, responded immediately. "All ships are in position, Commander. Shields are at maximum power. Weapons are charged and ready. The unknown vessel will enter weapon range in approximately 4 minutes. "Excellent. Open a channel to the vessel." The communication officer worked at his station. "Channel open, Commander." Torani straightened his uniform and spoke clearly. "Unknown vessel, this is Fleet Commander Toranis of the Galactic Conquered 3rd Defensive Armada. You have entered conquered space without permission and committed acts of war against our people. You will stop your engines immediately and surrender. If you do not comply, we will be forced to destroy you." He waited for a response. There was only silence. "They are not responding, Commander," the communication officer said. Toranis had expected this. "Very well. All ships prepare for combat. We will give them one final warning when they enter weapon range. If they do not surrender, we will open fire." The Armada waited. On hundreds of bridges across the fleet, crews watched their screens and prepared for battle. Many of them were nervous. They had heard the reports about the unknown ship's weapons, but they trusted their commander. They trusted their technology. They trusted that 400 ships would be more than enough. The unknown vessel appeared on the main screen. It was smaller than Torani's had expected, just a kilometer long compared to his flagship's 3 kilometers. Its black hull seemed to absorb the light from nearby stars. It moved with a strange grace, almost like a sea creature swimming through water. "The vessel has entered weapon range," the tactical officer announced. "Awaiting your orders, Commander." Torani's took a deep breath. "All ships lock weapons on target, fire on my command." 400 warships aimed their weapons at the single approaching vessel. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust was now pointed at one small ship. "Final warning," Torani said over the open channel. "Surrender now or be destroyed." The unknown vessel's response was not words, it was action. The ship suddenly accelerated to a speed that should have been impossible. At the same time, panels on its hull opened, revealing weapons that glowed with strange light. Before Torani's could give the order to fire, the unknown vessel was already among his fleet. What happened next would haunt the survivors for the rest of their lives. The unknown ship did not fight like any vessel the Conquered had ever encountered. It did not hold position and exchange fire. It did not try to stay at a safe distance. Instead, it moved through the formation like a predator among prey. Its weapons were constantly changing. One moment they fired beams of pure white energy that cut through shields like they were not there. The next moment they released swarms of small projectiles that seemed to seek out weak points in hull armor. Then there were pulses of something that made ships simply stop working, their systems dead, their crews helpless. The conquered ships tried to fight back. They fired everything they had, but their weapons seemed to have no effect. Energy beams bent around the unknown vessel's hull. Missiles exploded before they could reach their target. The few shots that did connect simply disappeared into the black surface without causing any visible damage. Torani's watched his fleet die around him. Ships that had taken years to build were destroyed in seconds. Crews that had trained for decades were killed before they could even understand what was happening. "Focus all fire on the target," he screamed. "Coordinate your attacks, do not let it." His words were cut off as his own flagship shook violently. Warning lights flashed across every console. The tactical officer was thrown from her seat. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, someone shouted. "Shields have failed, we have lost main power." Torani's grabbed his command chair to keep from falling. Through the bridge's viewing window, he could see the unknown vessel passing by. It was so close that he could make out details on its hull. He could see patterns that looked almost like writing, though in no language he recognized. For just a moment, the vessel seemed to pause. Torani's had the strange feeling that he was being observed, that something inside that ship was looking at him, studying him, judging him. Then the vessel moved on, continuing its path through what remained of his fleet. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. When it was over, 400 conquered warships had been reduced to drifting wreckage. Of the thousands who had served on those ships, fewer than 300 survived, scattered among escape pods and damaged sections of hull. Torani's was one of the survivors. His flagship had been crippled but not destroyed. He sat in his ruined bridge, surrounded by dead crew members, and watched the unknown vessel continue on its course deeper into conquered space. His final report, recorded by the ship's black box before the backup power failed, would be studied by every military leader in the Conquered for years to come. "This is Fleet Commander Torani's," he said, his voice barely a whisper. The third defensive armada has been destroyed. 400 ships, 4 minutes. We could not even slow it down. He paused, and when he spoke again, there was something in his voice that no one had ever heard from him before. Fear. True, deep, terrible fear. "What are they?" he asked. "What kind of beings can do this? We threw everything we had at them and it meant nothing, nothing at all." The recording ended there. Toranis would be rescued 3 days later, found still sitting in his command chair, staring at nothing. He would never command a ship again. The memory of those 4 minutes had broken something inside him. The unknown vessel, meanwhile, continued its journey. It had proven its point. It had shown the Conquered what it could do. Now it was time for the next part of its mission. It was time to talk. Panic spread through the Conquered like fire through dry grass. Emergency sessions were held on every member world. Leaders who had never agreed on anything now found themselves united by fear. The recordings from the Third Defensive Armada were watched millions of times. Each viewing brought new horror as people realized how helpless their protectors had been. More fleets were recalled from the frontier. Ancient weapons, sealed away after the Great Reconciliation and forbidden by treaty, were discussed in secret meetings. Some leaders wanted to use them. Others warned that such weapons might not be enough. A few suggested that the Conquered should prepare to surrender. Then, after 3 days of death and destruction, the unknown vessel stopped. It came to rest in empty space between two minor star systems. No planets nearby, no stations, no ships, just darkness and stars, and there it waited. For 12 hours, nothing happened. Conquered ships kept their distance, watching but not approaching. Everyone remembered what had happened to those who got too close. Then the unknown vessel broadcast a message. It was simple, it was clear, and it was in perfect Conquered standard language. "We wish to speak." The Conquered High Council debated for hours about how to respond. Some wanted to refuse. This vessel had killed thousands of their people. Why should they negotiate with murderers? Others argued that they had no choice. They could not defeat this enemy in battle. Perhaps words could accomplish what weapons could not. In the end, curiosity and desperation won over anger and pride. A delegation was assembled. It included representatives from all 12 species of the Conquered: scientists, diplomats, military officers, and political leaders. They boarded a diplomatic vessel and made the journey to meet their enemy. High Ambassador Kethoras led the delegation. She was old by the standards of her people, with silver scales and eyes that had seen much in her long life. She had negotiated treaties with hostile species. She had ended wars with her words. But as her ship approached the unknown vessel, she felt a fear she had not experienced in decades. "They are opening a docking port," her pilot reported. "We are being invited inside." Cathora straightened in her seat. "Take us in." The interior of the unknown vessel was as strange as its exterior. The corridors were narrow and efficient. The lighting was dim. The walls were covered with writing that no one could read. But strangest of all were the crew members who came to greet them. They were small, shorter than most Conquered species. They had no scales, no extra limbs, no special features, just soft skin in various shades of brown, hair on their heads, 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth. They looked fragile, weak, ordinary. And yet they moved with a confidence that made Kethoras uncomfortable. "Welcome aboard the Prometheus," one of them said. It was a female with dark hair and sharp eyes. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations except for a small symbol on her chest. "I am Captain Chen Weilin. Please follow me." Kethoras exchanged glances with her fellow delegates. They had expected monsters. They had expected beings of terrible power and alien appearance. Instead, they found creatures who could have walked unnoticed through any Conquered city. "What species are you?" Kethoras asked as they walked. "We do not recognize your kind." Captain Chen smiled slightly. "Your scouts visited our world 200 years ago. They observed us for several weeks, then left. Their report classified us as pre-industrial, no strategic value. Kethoras felt cold inside. She remembered that report. The species had been called humans. They had been living in primitive cities, fighting each other with simple weapons, dying of diseases that conquered medicine could easily cure. The scouts had recommended no further contact. The humans were too primitive to be useful and too violent to be trusted. "That is not possible," one of the conquered scientists said. 200 years is not enough time for any species to advance from pre-industrial to this. He gestured at the walls around them. "For most species you would be correct," Captain Chen said. "But humans are not most species. When we discovered that we were being watched, we realized something important. We were not alone in the universe, and the beings watching us had decided we were worthless." She stopped walking and turned to face the delegation. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were hard. "That decision saved us," she continued. "Because you ignored us, we had time to develop, time to grow, time to prepare for what we knew was coming." "And what was that?" Kethoras asked. "War," Captain Chen said simply. "We have studied your conquered. We know your history. We know that you believe peace is the natural state of things, that conflict can always be avoided through negotiation and compromise." She shook her head. "We do not share that belief. Humans have been fighting each other since we first learned to walk. We know that some enemies cannot be reasoned with. Some threats cannot be negotiated away. Sometimes, the only option is to be stronger than those who wish to destroy you." She began walking again, leading them deeper into the ship. "So we built, we invented, we created weapons and shields and engines that your scientists said were impossible, because we had to, because we knew that someday we would need them." "Need them for what?" Kethoras demanded. "Why have you attacked us? We never threatened your world." Captain Chen stopped at a large door. She placed her hand on a panel, and the door slid open, revealing a massive room filled with screens and displays. On those screens were images that made every member of the delegation gasp in horror. Ships, thousands upon thousands of ships, moving through space in formations that stretched beyond sight, destroying everything in their path. "We did not come here to threaten you," Captain Chen said quietly. "We came to warn you. The hegemony is coming. They conquer, they enslave, they exterminate, and they will be here within 5 years." She turned to face the delegation, and for the first time Kethoras saw something other than confidence in the human's eyes. She saw concern, fear, and something else. "Hope. We destroyed your fleets because we needed you to understand," Captain Chen said. "The old ways will not work against what is coming. Your shields cannot stop them. Your weapons cannot hurt them. Everything you believe about war is wrong." She gestured at the screens behind her. "But we can teach you. We can help you prepare. We can show you how to build weapons that will work, shields that will hold, ships that can fight." Kethoras stared at the human captain. This small, fragile-looking creature had destroyed hundreds of conquered ships, had killed thousands of conquered citizens, and now she was offering to help. "Why?" Kethoras asked. "Why warn us? Why help us? You have clearly shown that you do not need us." Captain Chen's expression softened slightly. "Because we learned something else in our 200 years of preparation, something important." She looked at each member of the delegation in turn. "No species can survive alone, not forever. The galaxy is too big and too dangerous. Someday we will face something that even we cannot defeat, and on that day we will need allies." She extended her hand toward Kethoras. It was a human gesture of friendship, one that the conquered researchers had recorded during their original survey. "The question is simple, High Ambassador. Will you stand with us, or will you face the hegemony alone?" The room was silent. Every delegate understood what was being asked. An alliance with the species that had just proven itself capable of destroying them all. partnership with beings who thought and fought in ways completely foreign to conquered philosophy. Cathoras looked at the extended hand. Then she looked at the screens showing the approaching enemy fleet. She had a choice to make, and the future of the galaxy depended on her answer. The conference room on board the Prometheus was simple and functional. A large table stood in the center, surrounded by chairs designed to accommodate many different body types. The conquered delegation sat on one side. Captain Chen and her officers sat on the other. Between them lay the future of the galaxy. Captain Chen activated a holographic display above the table. Images appeared in the air, showing star systems, fleet movements, and data that made the conquered scientists lean forward with interest. "We detected the hegemony 30 years ago," Chen began. "One of our deep space probes picked up their communication signals. We spent the next decade studying them, learning their language, understanding their culture." She changed the display to show images of the hegemony species. They were tall and thin, with pale skin and large black eyes. Their faces showed no emotion. Their movements were precise and mechanical. They call themselves the Varkith. Their civilization is over 50,000 years old. They have conquered more than 200 species across 4 galaxies. High Ambassador Cathoras felt her scales turn pale. 4 galaxies, that is not possible. "It is very possible," Chen replied. "The Varkith are patient. They do not rush. They expand slowly, methodically, consuming everything in their path. Every species they encounter faces the same choice: surrender and serve, or resist and die." "What happens to those who surrender?" one of the delegates asked. Chen's expression darkened. "They become slaves, workers, resources. The Varkith do not see other species as equals. They see them as tools to be used and discarded. Those who resist are simply eliminated. Their planets are destroyed. Their histories are erased. It is as if they never existed." She changed the display again, showing a map of the galaxy. A large red area covered nearly a quarter of the visible space. "This is hegemony territory as of our last update. The red area is expanding. Based on their current rate of advance, they will reach conquered space in approximately 5 years, perhaps less." Admiral Vethari, who had joined the delegation after her initial encounter with the Prometheus, spoke for the first time. "Why have we never detected them? Our sensors cover vast distances. We should have seen something." "The Varkith are masters of stealth technology," Chen explained. "Their ships can cross entire sectors without being detected. By the time you see them coming, it is already too late. They will appear in your home systems with overwhelming force, and your fleets will be caught out of position." She paused and looked at each member of the delegation. "That is why we came the way we did. We needed to show you what real warfare looks like. We needed to break through your illusion of safety. If we had simply sent a message warning you about the hegemony, would you have believed us?" Cathoras wanted to argue, but she knew Chen was right. The conquered had been at peace for 3,000 years. They had forgotten what it meant to face an enemy that could not be negotiated with. If the humans had simply appeared and claimed a great danger was coming, the Council would have dismissed them as paranoid primitives. "You killed thousands of our people to make a point," she said quietly. Chen's face showed no regret. "I did what was necessary. Those deaths, as terrible as they were, are nothing compared to what the hegemony will do. They will not stop at thousands. They will not stop at millions. They will kill billions. They will wipe out entire species, and they will not feel a moment of guilt or doubt." She leaned forward, her eyes intense. "I know you hate us right now. I know you think we are monsters, but I would rather you hate us and survive than love us and die. The hegemony is coming, and nothing you say or do will change that. The only question is whether you will be ready when they arrive." General Thexorn, the highest-ranking military officer in the delegation, spoke up. "You said you could help us prepare. What exactly does that mean? Our technology is clearly inferior to yours. How can we possibly catch up in 5 years? Chen nodded at one of her officers, a young man with pale skin and red hair. He activated another display, showing technical diagrams and specifications. We are not asking you to match our technology, Chen said. That would be impossible in the time we have, but there are certain advances that we can share. Improvements to your shields that will make them resistant to hegemony weapons, new targeting systems that can track their stealth ships, communication methods that cannot be jammed or intercepted. She stood and walked around the table. More importantly, we can teach you how to fight. Your military doctrine is based on defense and containment. You form lines and hold positions. The hegemony will tear through such formations like paper. You need to learn how to be aggressive, how to strike fast and hard, how to accept losses without losing hope. That is not our way, one of the delegates protested. The conquered values all life. We cannot simply throw away our soldiers in desperate attacks. Chen stopped and turned to face him. Then you will die, all of you. Every species in the conquered will be enslaved or exterminated. Your values, your culture, your history, everything you have built over 3,000 years will be erased. Her voice softened slightly. I do not ask you to abandon your values. I ask you to adapt them, to understand that sometimes the best way to save lives is to risk them, that sometimes peace can only be preserved through strength, that sometimes the most merciful thing you can do is kill your enemies before they can kill you. The room was silent. The delegates looked at each other, seeing their own fear and uncertainty reflected in their colleagues' eyes. Cathoras finally spoke. If we agree to this alliance, what do you want from us? Resources, Chen replied immediately. Materials, manufacturing capacity. Your shipyards can produce hundreds of vessels in the time it takes us to build one. We can provide the designs. You can build the fleet. And command, Admiral Vithari asked, who will lead this combined force? Joint command, Chen said. Humans and conquered species working together. We have knowledge and experience that you lack, but you have numbers and resources that we need. Neither of us can defeat the hegemony alone. Together, we have a chance. She returned to her seat and looked at Cathoras directly. I will not lie to you, High Ambassador. Even with everything we can do, victory is not certain. The hegemony is vast and powerful. They have destroyed species far more advanced than either of us. We may fight with everything we have and still lose. Then why fight at all? Cathoras asked. Chen smiled for the first time since the meeting began. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had faced impossible odds before and refused to surrender. Because we are human, she said. Because giving up is not in our nature. Because we would rather die fighting than live as slaves. And because every now and then the impossible happens. The weak defeat the strong. The small overcome the large. History is full of such moments. She extended her hand again, just as she had before. Join us, High Ambassador. Help us create one more impossible moment. Help us save the galaxy. Cathoras looked at the human's hand. Then she looked at her fellow delegates. She saw fear in their eyes, but she also saw something else. A tiny spark of hope, a small flame of courage. She reached out and took Chen's hand. We will need to discuss this with our governments, she said. There will be arguments, resistance. Many will not want to accept help from those who killed our people. I understand, Chen said. Take the time you need, but do not take too long. The hegemony waits for no one. Cathoras nodded. The alliance was not yet certain, but for the first time since the unknown ship had appeared, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope. 6 months had passed since the meeting aboard the Prometheus. 6 months of arguments, negotiations, and desperate work. 6 months of species that had once ignored each other learning to trust and cooperate. 6 months of building, training, and preparing for the storm that was coming. Now, at the edge of conquered space, the first joint fleet assembled. Over 2,000 ships from 100 different species spread across the darkness of space. Battleships and cruisers, destroyers and carriers, support vessels and medical ships, the largest military force ever assembled in the history of the galaxy. At the heart of the formation, the Prometheus held its position. The ship that had once been feared was now a symbol of hope. Its black hull stood out against the stars, a reminder of what was possible when the impossible was attempted. Admiral Vethari stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Unified Defiance. It was a hybrid vessel, built using both Concord and human technology. Its shields were stronger than anything the Concord had ever produced. Its weapons were more powerful. Its engines were faster. It was proof of what the Alliance could accomplish. Beside her stood Captain Chen Weilin, serving as joint commander of the fleet. The human looked the same as she had 6 months ago, calm, confident, ready for whatever came next. "All ships report ready, Admiral," the tactical officer announced. "The fleet is in position." Vethari nodded. She looked at the main screen, which showed the vast formation spread out before them. So many ships, so many crews, so many lives depending on decisions she and Chen would make in the hours ahead. "It is strange," she said quietly, speaking only to Chen. "6 months ago I wanted you dead. I hated you for what you did to our patrol squadron, to the Third Armada, to Commander Toranis." Chen nodded, "And now?" Vethari turned to look at the human. "Now I understand. I do not agree with your methods. I may never fully forgive you. But I understand why you did what you did. Sometimes the only way to save someone is to hurt them first." "A lesson my species learned long ago," Chen replied. "We have hurt ourselves many times throughout our history, wars that killed millions, weapons that could destroy our entire world. We came close to extinction more than once. And yet you survived." "We survived because we refused to give up, because we learned from our mistakes, because we kept fighting even when victory seemed impossible." Chen looked at the fleet displayed on the screen. "That is the gift we bring to this alliance. Not our technology, not our weapons, our will to survive." The sensor officer interrupted their conversation. "Commanders, we are detecting unusual readings at the edge of sensor range. Multiple contacts, hundreds of them, possibly thousands." Vethari felt her scales turn pale. The hegemony. Chen's expression did not change. "Show me." The main screen shifted to display the sensor data. Red dots appeared at the far edge of the display, growing more numerous with each passing second. The hegemony fleet was emerging from stealth, revealing itself for the first time. "By the ancient stars," someone whispered. The enemy fleet was enormous, more ships than anyone had imagined, battleships the size of small moons, carriers releasing swarms of smaller vessels. The formation stretched across space like a dark tide, ready to drown everything in its path. For a long moment, no one on the bridge spoke. They simply stared at the display, trying to comprehend the scale of what they faced. Chen broke the silence. "Open a channel to all ships." The communication officer worked quickly. "Channel open, Commander." Chen stepped forward so she could be seen on every ship in the fleet. Her voice was calm and steady when she spoke. "Warriors of the Alliance, the enemy is before us. I will not lie to you. They are many and we are few. They have conquered hundreds of species across 4 galaxies. They believe they cannot be stopped." She paused, letting her words sink in. "They are wrong." Her voice grew stronger. 6 months ago, most of you had never heard of humans. We were a forgotten species on a forgotten world, dismissed as primitive and worthless. But we refused to accept that judgment. We built. We grew. We prepared. And when the time came, we showed the galaxy what a so-called primitive species could accomplish. She gestured at the approaching enemy fleet. "The hegemony looks at you the same way the conquered once looked at us. They see weak species, easy targets, slaves waiting to be conquered. They do not see warriors. They do not see fighters. They do not see the alliance that stands before them today. Her eyes blazed with determination. Show them how wrong they are. Across the fleet, crew members who had been frozen with fear felt something stir inside them. Hope, courage, pride. All ships, Chen continued, remember your training. Remember why you fight. You fight for your homes, your families, your species. You fight for every being who has ever been conquered by the hegemony and for every being who will never be conquered because of what we do today. She raised her hand. The hegemony has never faced a united galaxy. They have never faced species who chose to stand together rather than fall apart. They have never faced beings who would rather die free than live as slaves. Her hand dropped. Today they will learn what that means. All ships advance for the Alliance, for the galaxy, for everyone who comes after us. The fleet surged forward, 2,000 ships moving as one, rushing to meet an enemy that outnumbered them many times over. The largest battle in galactic history had begun. Vethari watched the display as the two fleets closed on each other. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were steady on the controls. She was afraid, but she was also something else. She was ready. "Captain Chen," she said, "I have a question, one that I have wondered about since our first meeting." Chen looked at her. "Ask it." "When your scouts observed our world 200 years ago, they decided we were worthless. That decision hurt us, insulted us, but you said it saved you. What did you mean?" Chen smiled. It was the same smile she had shown in that first conference room, not happy but fierce, determined. "Because you ignored us, we had to save ourselves," she replied. "No one was coming to help. No one was going to protect us. We had to become strong on our own. That struggle, that desperate need to survive made us what we are today." She looked out at the battle beginning before them. "If you had accepted us 200 years ago, we would have become just another conquered species. Comfortable, safe, unprepared. Your rejection forced us to become something more." The first weapon's fire lit up the darkness ahead. The battle was truly joined now. Ships on both sides were fighting and dying. "We turned your rejection into our strength," Chen said, "and now we will turn that strength into victory." Vethari nodded slowly. She finally understood. The humans were not powerful despite their struggles. They were powerful because of them. Every challenge, every obstacle, every dismissal had only made them stronger. And now that strength would save the galaxy. The unified Defiance plunged into battle, its weapons blazing, its shields holding against enemy fire. Around it, the Alliance fleet fought with a fury that the hegemony had never encountered. Ships that should have been easy targets became deadly threats. Species that should have surrendered kept fighting. The battle would last for days. It would cost millions of lives. Victory would not be certain until the very end. But in that first hour, as the Alliance stood firm against the tide, something became clear. The galaxy had changed. The weak had become strong. The forgotten had become heroes. And the hegemony, for the first time in their 50,000-year history, faced an enemy that would not break. The war for the galaxy had begun. And humanity, the species that had once been dismissed as worthless, stood at its heart, leading the fight for survival. The impossible moment had arrived, and against all odds hope remained.